Hey guys, we're with Camel ADV. Got our Tenere here. One of the things that I wanted to improve with this bike was the fuel range. Great bike, does everything really well. 16-liter fuel tank, 4 gallons, 4.5, whatever it is. And it's just not quite enough for adventure riding. Kind of a little bit of fuel range anxiety out in the middle of nowhere. If you're in a highly populated area, yeah, there's gas stations everywhere. If you're out in the mountains, out exploring, find the ranges to be a little bit short. So we have the 5-liter Camel Tank, 5-liter auxiliary fuel tank. So this is very similar to the other Camel tanks that we have for other bikes. Roto-molded XLPE, very, very strong material. Durable enough to take all sorts of abuse when you're out adventure riding. Drop the bike on rocks, no big deal. Slamming branches and things into it, yeah, no problem at all. So we've got the translucent tank, and then we've got the black. The translucent is nice because you can keep an eye on the fuel level, and your fuel will stay a little bit cooler just in direct sunlight. But definitely, I think the black looks better. This is a little more functional. But they both have it's the same material. We've got our brass inserts that we're known for when you have an aftermarket tank and you're putting the cap on and off. The threads often get bunged up and they start to leak. So we've got embedded brass inserts for the vent, for the tank, fill cap, and for the fuel supply, as well as all of the mounting locations. So of the 6 or whatever tanks we have, this is the easiest install of any of them. It's brilliant. Connections are easy to get at. We don't even have to take the seat off the bike. Don't have to remove any plastic. No disassembly or very little disassembly. Everything is just nice and easy and accessible. The one challenge with this tank has been the rear mounting location. So if you have, I don't even know whether I have one here. I've got a stock Tenere over here that I will have to show you. So if we look at the underside here of the Tenere, we've got the factory license plate mounting set up here. So the amount of clearance that's in here is very low. The tire at full compression isn't too far from this, and we need somewhere to put the rear tank mount, and we can't get at these bolts. I mean, we can get the 2 on this side and the 2 on that side, but not front to back. If we put a bracket below here, the tire is going to contact it when it comes all the way up. But we need some triangulation here. We need some lateral support. So unfortunately, mounting the tank, we can't mount the tank on a bike that has the factory license plate signal light holder. It's really unfortunate. So you can see up here we've got a bracket on the tank itself, and then we've got our lateral support hanger bracket here, and that piggybacks onto these 2 bolts. So on the factory setup, there's that big piece of metal in here, and we can't get this underneath it because it would hang down too low and the tire would contact it. So I have not checked this with all of the other tail tidy brands. It obviously works with our tail tidy. If the one that you're using has got a nice flat surface here and has some clearance around the tail light screws, then maybe you can use it. The only consideration would be where it puts the signal lights. You can see these signal lights are just behind the tank. So if you have one of the other brands that the signal lights are recessed and are kind of under the tail light, you may need to put in really stubby signals, or you may have to change out your tail tidy bracket. So I know a lot of people will think that we did that intentionally, that, hey, you need to run our tail tidy if you're going to run the tank in order for us to sell more tail tidies, and that's not the case. At the end of the day, it's going to be a negative for us because we're going to lose sales to people that don't want to do a tail tidy or don't specifically want to do ours. They want to do somebody else's, or they want to leave the stock signal lights. As it sits right now, you need to run our tail tidy. We'll be adding a list on the website, other other fender eliminator kits that will work. I'm not sure what they are at this time, but we will add it on the website. Also, we will be adding the list of pannier racks that fit. I've got 4 pannier racks that are in transit to us and they haven't got here yet. So I've been putting off doing this video because I wanted to have the racks here so that I could say it works with this, 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 and this. None of them have come in, which is crazy. Just holiday shopping and holiday shipping delays, I suppose. I can tell you that it absolutely does work with the OEM Yamaha pannier racks. I'm not even sure who makes them for them, but they do fit. You can run the pillion pegs, and we'll be adding more and more pannier racks as we're able to check compatibility. So I know a lot of people are going to want to run rackless soft bags like the Reckless 80, Reckless 40, some of the Kriega stuff. You can do it over top of the tank. Just be aware that if you are dropping the bike repeatedly on this side, you're putting a lot of load into the brackets. The tank itself, no problem. The brackets are strong, but of course everything has a limit. So if you're crashing your brains out on the right-hand side of the bike and the luggage, the entire weight of the bike is sitting on the luggage and then the luggage is pushing into the tank, it's less than ideal. So I would recommend running something like the Rally Raid, the soft bag racks that they have, or the Adventure Spec racks. The Adventure Spec ones we have in the shop here, and they do fit over the tank with a 10 mil spacer. I am quite confident that the Rally Raid ones will fit too. I haven't tested them personally yet though, but we will add that to the list of pannier racks, the compatibility list on the website, once we have that information. I generally run the Reckless 10 is kind of my day bag pack, and it fits really well on the bike. It's not even down onto the tank. So this is, we wanted to put the filler cap back as far as we could and angled out. So if you have a rack here and you have a top box or something, you can still get the fuel in. You shouldn't have to take the box off unless you have some big monster thing. Same situation with a duffel bag. Most people are going to have the duffel bag ahead of this point generally. Generally people have their bag over the back half of their seat or on their pillion seat and to here. On this tank, we have put the vent in at a 90. Previous vents, it's been a straight up and down with a 90 hose. So we've got a 90 here, so the chance of this hose being kinked with a bag sitting on it is far less than it has been in the past. So that's been a nice improvement. The tank does work with the factory chain guard, and the connections are really quick and easy on this one. So there's a bracket that goes in here. Normally I took it off just so you can see the connections. There is a one-way valve that sits on the back here, and it goes from the main tank's vent hose down to the charcoal canister. So the Camel Tank just plugs in, goes in line between those two fittings actually. So this is off the charcoal canister here. So this goes to the vent line on the Camel Tank. And then this is the fuel line off the Camel Tank, goes to the vent on the main tank. And again, nothing to take apart. We just feed the lines through here, make the connections, zip tie everything, bolt the tank on and call it a day. So we've been using the same method of fuel transfer for almost all of our Camel tanks. There's a few exceptions. The 950, 990 KTMs are a gravity feed. Same with the 790. They just run downhill from the Camel Tank into the crossover tube with the 2 lobes. Everything else we do is a vacuum feed. So you have your fuel outline on your main tank, and you have a vent line. So as the fuel is dropping in the main tank, as it gets sucked out by the fuel pump, you need to replace that fuel with air. So it actually creates vacuum. So we plug the vent hose off of the main tank into the fuel line off the Camel Tank. So as this drops, creates vacuum, pulls the fuel out of here, and refills the main tank. So in theory, your auxiliary gas tank empties first. So your fuel gauge will just read full longer. When the Camel Tank is empty, then this just becomes part of the venting system. So your main tank vents into the Camel tank, the vent line off of the Camel tank goes back into the charcoal canister, and it's like the system's not even there. So we've increased the size of the fuel line on this bike. Usually we use 1/4 inch. This is actually 3/8. It's made a huge difference in hot weather fuel transfer. So it's a very reliable system. Something to check on your Tenere, because I've seen a few threads of people having leaky gas caps. Because this system is using vacuum, if you have a main tank fuel cap that doesn't seal, you're losing vacuum out of that main cap. And the fuel will not transfer from the Camel tank. So easy way to check it, kind of crude, easy way to check it is to lean the bike over when you have a full tank. If fuel's leaking out of here, you need to replace the fuel cap. I believe Yamaha's doing it under warranty. There's a few threads floating around with people that are having that issue. Doesn't seem to be too widespread though. So with the vacuum method, some interesting things happen. This fuel level is dropping, creating vacuum, like I said, and pulling from the Camel tank. When you put fuel in your bike or you start on a cold morning, your fuel is very dense. It's condensed because of the colder temperature. And then you have essentially a stove element right here that's heating the fuel up. Of course, when things heat up, they expand. So we get a really interesting phenomenon going on that when you start to ride, even though your bike is pulling fuel out of the main tank, it's also getting warmer. So the volume of your tank, the fuel is expanding, and it's actually can expand faster than the fuel's pulling it out, or the pump is pulling it out. So we get a situation where the main tank is blowing bubbles into the Camel tank. So even though the bike's running and it's using fuel, it's not creating vacuum yet. So the system doesn't always start to transfer immediately. It can take some time to do it. It may be an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on the riding you're doing. But over the course of the main tank, you're going to pull the fuel out of the Camel tank. Now, I know already, just from past experience, that my customers that have the translucent tank and can see the fuel level, I'm going to get way more emails from them saying, hey, I don't think my tank is transferring properly because I rode this far and there's still this much fuel in it. Very rare that there's any sort of transfer issue, just because you can see the fuel line and you can see bubbles being blown into it in certain circumstances. Doesn't mean that there's an issue with the tank. So very straightforward system, no pumps, nothing to prime, nothing to transfer, no petcocks to turn. Fill the Camel tank, start riding. It will start draining at some point along your journey. So we're going to do a full install video, not this video, this is an install, this is just a straight up intro. We're going to do a full install video in the next day or two, and we're going to start shipping these a few days after that. So within the next week, we're looking at, what is the date today? I think it's December 10th or 11th. Within the next week, like before Christmas, we will be shipping these. So keep an eye on the website. The product page is already up. There's just currently the inventory is set to 0, so you can't order it. But that will be changing in the next couple of days, and watch for the full install video. If you have any questions, info@camel-adv.com. Thanks for watching.